You're listening to the Baumbastic Podcast with Andrew Ellis on Inside Arkansas.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Baumbastic Podcast, the number one podcast in America for anything, but specifically for Arkansas Razorback baseball. We're presented by Inside Arkansas and brought to you by the number one sports betting app in the state of Arkansas, the SARACEN Sportsbook. Download it on your iPhone or Android today. Coming to you live, and I do mean actually live. Appreciate you guys for being here with us. Our first live series recap of the season, and what a time to do it, because it's after Arkansas completes a road sweep on the road at Alabama, who came into this series number 8 in the country, according to the D1 Baseball Top 25, top 2 in the country in RPI. This was huge for Arkansas for a lot of reasons. One, just getting that good feeling back. Helped yourself a lot from a resume standpoint. Also got a lot of guys going both on the mound, at the plate. You got some huge performances. This was massive for a lot of reasons, but also for the Baumbastic Podcast. I mean, this just is perfect timing for us to enjoy this series recap together. So looking forward to diving into the chat, hearing what you guys have to say about this, maybe getting into a little bit of arguing about, are they really back, or was this just the fluke, or like what's going on here? But the vibes will be good. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. And also want to give a shout out to our presenting sponsor, the official post-series recap sponsor of the Baumbastic Podcast, OZK Insurance. And one thing that really sets OZK Insurance apart is this: they're an independent insurance agency. That means they're not just tied to one company. They shop a multitude of A-rated carriers to find the best coverage and price for you. And now they've paired with something that you don't usually see from an independent agency, a full-service mobile app. And with the OZK Insurance app, you can see all your policies under one roof: home, auto, whatever you have. Plus, you can pay your bills, request roadside assistance, file claims, request policy changes, or even get new quotes, all from your phone. So you get the best part of an independent agency, plus you get the flexibility of modern technology. And if you're tired of being stuck with one carrier or chasing down paperwork, go to ozkinsurance.com or search OZK Insurance in the App Store or Google Play. Local agency, national level options, one powerful app. That is OZK Insurance. So this was a fun series, man. And baseball is just a funny game, because I think there's probably a lot of you, or a lot of casual fans in general, who probably look at this and they're like, what happened here? Like, how does this happen where a team that's 5-7 can go on the road and beat a team that was red hot and was just playing great baseball? Like, did you do something crazy different? Did we reset the entire lineup? There was a little bit of that. They changed some things up in terms of the order. You get Damian Ruiz back. That's huge. You make a little bit of a shakeup in the starting rotation, but really, this was just kind of an overcorrection weekend, I felt like, for both teams. I felt like Arkansas was not as bad as their 5-7 record in SEC play indicated. I also didn't think that Alabama was quite as good as their 8-4 record indicated in SEC play, specifically the last 3 weeks. Bama was 8-1 in the last 3 weeks against Oklahoma, Auburn, and Florida, who all three spent time in the top 10 this season. 3 really good baseball teams. Bama is good. They're doing a good thing over there with Rob Vaughn at their program. They've got some talent on their roster. They got some good arms for sure. They're not 8-1 against that level of competition, level good. And so it's just a weird game. And, of course, we kind of felt like Arkansas was due to turn things around a little bit. And, again, I come back to, I don't think Arkansas really, made this massive leap forward and got way better overnight. I also don't think they really, changed up their approach in a massive way or anything. Sometimes in baseball, you can do the exact same thing you always do with the same pieces, the same coaching staff, same everything, and you get completely different results. Obviously, what your opponent is doing factors into that a good bit, but sometimes you just get the breaks of the game, and sometimes you have guys step up for you in massive ways. Arkansas definitely got a lot of that this weekend, and it felt like every time there was a huge moment in the game, we talk about this all the time, it's kind of like, you're really just kind of trading, going back and forth. Nothing really is going on. Then there's a massive moment in the game where it's going to kind of swing this thing. Arkansas rose to the occasion in every single one of those. For this weekend in particular, is the 8th inning every single time. I think Arkansas scored 6 in the 8th inning on Friday night. I think they scored 5 in the 8th inning yesterday and then tacked on a few more in the 9th. And then in this game, it was just one run, but it was a massive one run. That was awesome. Good to see Arkansas kind of making those big plays at the same time. And for Bama, a lot of missed opportunities. I'm sure they're going to look back at this series and be like, damn, how did we not salvage at least one win out of this, especially in this particular game? They finished with 9 hits, squared up a lot of baseballs, had Arkansas on the ropes at a few different points. I'm sure we're going to break down all this, and probably you guys will have some questions about this, but how about Gabe Gaeckle kind of just nutting up in those situations? He wasn't great. He wasn't perfect. It wasn't like this move to the bullpen necessarily got him completely back on track, but he doesn't allow a run today. Second and third, nobody out. He was able to execute those pitches, and that ended up being the difference in the game. You look at the way Arkansas scored their runs in this game. They scored 3 runs. You have a Helfrich triple and a Micah New sac fly. Wasn't like they strung together a ton, just 2 good swings right there. Boom, you have a run. Ruiz has a leadoff double in the 6th inning, was this? No, maybe the 7th inning against Upchurch, who they tried to kind of stretch out a little bit. Freshman, who was really good for Alabama today. They tried to stretch him out for that 7th inning. Ruiz leads off with a double just inside the line at third base. Kahio Aloy with a, dare I say, a very good patient approach. AB works a walk. I think it was the first Razorback walk of the day. And then Nolan Souza, they sent him up there to lay down a bunt. He doesn't get the bunt down, goes down 0-2, ends up getting a 1-2 breaking ball, hits it back up the middle for a base hit, provided a huge run for Arkansas, but also saved his ass because that would have been a long walk back to the dugout if you had failed to get the bunt down and you end up not getting a run in that situation. Arkansas was able to salvage, get 1 run there, kind of left a little bit of meat on the bone because you had first and second, nobody out. You don't end up attacking onto it. But then you have the 8th inning, Ryder Helfrich gets walked, basically should have been picked off. I mean, he was picked off. I mean, he was dead to rights. They were about to have him in a rundown. He was even prepared, like kind of anticipating the throw. Guy just drops the baseball. He ends up going to second on a ball where he probably should have been out. The literal next pitch, Camden Kojal just barely gets a ball inside the line. It's just how it goes sometimes. And so for Bama, I'm sure their fan base is probably freaking out thinking, man, what the hell? Like, how did we let all these opportunities slip through our fingers? And today they honestly probably should feel that way. But again, I just kind of come back to this was a massive overcorrection weekend, I felt like, for both teams. And really, if you look at the SEC standings, you know, there's a lot of chaos. By the way, Arkansas is now 5th in those SEC standings. Kind of crazy. As bad as things have been, you can now look up, and Arkansas is kind of right there in the thick of it. They're going to get an opportunity against number 1 Georgia, number 1 in the SEC, Georgia, next week, coming off a series loss against Florida. Arkansas's got a huge opportunity to kind of show, all right, are you in this little middle of the pack where there's like 9 teams all bunched up at 8-7, 7-8, kind of that range? If Arkansas beats Georgia, not only would that give you another huge resume win, huge kind of prove it to show that, hey, we really are this level of team, it would also have you in the top 3 or 4 of those SEC standings with some big-time marquee series wins under your belt. I mean, that could be massive. Arkansas's already got a series win over Mississippi State. It's just kind of crazy, man. Like, and we talked about this the other day on the show. We were comparing Arkansas last year to Arkansas this year and kind of where they're at. This time last year, Arkansas was 31-3 going into their series against, I guess it would have been, it was on the road at Georgia where they wound up losing on the road in that game. And then that kind of, marked a stretch where Arkansas had 3 series losses in a row. Comparing it to where Arkansas is at this stage of the season, it was going much worse, but we kind of looked at the numbers and we're like, if baseball is a game of averages, some of these things have to kind of, work back in Arkansas's favor at some point. And eventually they did, at least for this weekend, for last year's team. So it's kind of weird because, like, obviously we would all trade Arkansas's record at this time last year for their record this year. We would gladly sign up for that. But, is that necessarily what you want? Did last year's team peak too early? I don't know. We'll see. But on this day today, it is just nice to celebrate a win. So without further ado, let's hop into this chat and let's see what you guys have to say about it. I'm sure this is going to have a lot better vibes than our midweek Calling All Casual streams have had. For those of you that have been in here, it's been a little bit bleak. I'm not going to lie. There's been some moments where we're like, it's like me and 7 guys angry at each other, all talking to each other for an hour there. So it's nice to have some participation here in the chat today. Of course, we know the rules. Super chats get read first. Shout out to our guy Butcher Boy. Says, Super chat as promised, I'll eat crow. Was worried about winning 1, and the boys brought their brooms to T-Town with them. Saw a lot of improvement this series. So I can't remember if it was Butcher Boy or someone else, but someone on Inside Arkansas Live, we were doing the show the other day, and someone was like, is there any path to Arkansas getting 1 win this weekend? And I was like, and I kind of like, was taken back by it, not because I didn't think Arkansas was going to sweep Alabama this weekend, and I wasn't even super confident that they were going to win the series. I wouldn't have been surprised at all if Arkansas didn't win this series and we're sitting there at 6-10 in SEC play. But I was like, man, I don't think Alabama is that level of a team to be like hopeful you get 1. Like, I think I even said going into the series, like, you should still be upset if you lose this series. Now, it's very possible they're playing some good baseball. You're not playing great baseball, but like, from a talent standpoint, Arkansas's substantially more talented than Alabama. Now, going on the road is tough, and, Bama's been playing some great baseball, but I never really viewed this series as like this David versus Goliath type of thing that I think a lot of people did. But again, most of those people were inside the Arkansas fan base. I think a lot of people nationally kind of understand what happened here, realize that Arkansas was due to play a little bit better baseball. But, when you're in the thick of it with your team, sometimes it just kind of feels that way. And then Washburn Idol says, leader of the free world, Ryder Helfrich, legging out that triple and putting the team on his back once again is why he's the MVP of this team. Yeah, absolutely. What's funny is, like, you look up at the end of the weekend, I don't know what the numbers are going to look like for just Ryder, but wasn't like a banner weekend for Ryder, both at the dish or behind the dish, defensively. I felt like there were some balls that he probably wishes he could have back. Bama was able to get some, and mostly it was more so on the pitchers, but Bama was able to steal some bags against him. I'm sure he was frustrated with that, and had a couple, pass balls on the fringe of pass ball, wild pitch, like a few that he would probably want back. And at the plate, he didn't do a ton of damage. I don't think he homered in this series. Was huge today. Had two huge. Had the run, or I guess scored 2 of Arkansas's 3 runs today. But it wasn't like he racked up 7 hits over the weekend like he's fully capable of doing. But that's why, not only is he the most valuable player on this team from just a production standpoint, he brings it even when he's not necessarily playing his baseball. He brings it, which is always good to see. And we saw, signs of this in the Auburn series that this is the dude that can kind of galvanize that locker room a little bit, get Arkansas fired up a little bit. And, what better way to do it than get right behind your leader? All righty. So what else we got going on in the chat? So I see at the top here, guy Lazy Turtle says, are we back or do we need to see it another weekend? Well, listen, the thing about baseball is you never get to rest on your laurels. You just have to move on, keep playing baseball, keep moving forward. And Arkansas's got a pretty damn good Georgia team coming to town. So, it can flip on you real quick, no matter what side of the equation you're on. This is, I think there's a lot of people who are going to have a little bit of a wait and see approach to an extent, but I think you should definitely enjoy this sweep for what it was. Gives you a lot of breathing room, which Arkansas could definitely use right about now. And then I got Lane, always brings the energy here. He says, I didn't hear the bell. Georgia, you think this will be an easy series next weekend? You ain't ready for the Hogs. Hey, Georgia did not have an easy series with Florida, and I think they were at home. I could be wrong about that, but Georgia got the business from Florida this weekend. How about that, man? That's interesting. Bo Suttle says Gaeckle got 2 dubs on the weekend. Yeah, who had that? Which, by the way, I think, I'll have to tally up all the numbers. I think Cameron won the little battle that we had. We have a little pre-series game we do where we pick 3 hitters, 3 pitchers. He had Gaeckle, who gets 2 dubs on the weekend, which gives him 5 points each for both of those. I think Cameron's probably going to have me there, and it's kind of funny because in neither game did I feel like Gabe Gaeckle came in and really just shut it down and was just lights out. He threw 1 inning on Friday night, and then it kind of wound up being the inning where Arkansas explodes in the 8th inning. Then he throws 2 innings today and I would say he was fortunate to get out of that with 0 runs, but keeps, it's 2-1 when he entered the game, keeps the score at 2-2 despite some chaos there in the 7th inning, and then Ethan McIlvain closes the door. It's very interesting, and I'm sure there's going to be some discussions. I'll probably wait until someone asks the question, but I still think there's some conversations to be had about how you deploy some of these guys, and is this now what we're going to do moving forward in terms of just the timing of how these guys were used when they come into the game? Is this necessarily what we want to happen? Maybe it is. I don't know, but I do think, kind of going back to what we talked about in the Auburn series, just you have to look at your top 6 or 7 arms and just be like, hey, you guys have to carry this weight a little bit. I don't care if it's you starting, you closing, you coming in middle relief, maybe you come in twice a weekend, but you guys right here are going to have to carry us. That's what Arkansas did this weekend. I mean, you look at who appeared in this series this weekend. If I'm missing anybody, you guys let me know. Obviously, Dietz, Gibbler, McGuire were your 3 starters. Gaeckle threw twice. McIlvain threw twice. Coyle threw twice. Eves throws once. Fisher throws once. That's it. That was literally all Arkansas did. And a couple of those guys, Eves threw, I think he got 4 outs for Arkansas. Fisher wound up throwing 3 innings for Arkansas. Gibbler, I think, McGuire today in his first SEC start gave Arkansas 3 innings, which, by the way, I thought both of those guys, McGuire and Fisher, were they got the job done in their outings. Like it wasn't, dominant, wasn't like, oh man, that's perfect. These guys are excelling in a huge way, but both of those guys did their job. And for Fisher, it kind of wound up being easier because he entered into a 4-4 game or something like that. And it wound up being like 15-5 by the time he got to the ninth inning. I like that. Let's see. And then Seth says, I laughed at Andrew's idea that Arkansas could outperform Bama this weekend. Will not be questioning his ball knowledge for the foreseeable future. So I will say, I can't take like a huge victory lap because I didn't even make a public prediction for this. I wasn't super confident that Arkansas was going to win this series, like by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't like, I think a lot of times when you see your team struggle, we always jump to like, if a guy strikes out, it's like, okay, he can't get the job done. Like he can't hit. That's what you usually see. Like, oh, this guy, he just can't hit. And then, pitcher goes out there and doesn't have an outing. And it's like, oh, he just not a starter. Or you try to put him out there in the ninth inning. Oh, he's just not a closer, and it's like, I think there's a little bit more nuance here. And so I try to at least kind of see both sides of the coin here. I did think it was funny how many people were like, couldn't see a path to Arkansas competing against Alabama. Alabama has 4 ranked prospects on their entire roster, and 3 of them are freshmen. Now, their Friday night starter, he's not currently ranked. He probably will once they have an update because he's been throwing the ball pretty well. But, like, there's like 5 or 6 guys on Alabama's roster who are like legitimate draft prospects, and half of them are freshmen. Arkansas, literally every single player pretty much on the roster is at least like even some of Arkansas's worst players that you guys hate are like going to get drafted to make a ton of money. TJ Pompey is a prime example of this, and obviously he's been a lot better here lately. I don't think you guys hate him as much, but like there's a lot of guys on this Arkansas roster who haven't necessarily played well, but are high-level baseball players, very capable of being good. And so it is kind of funny that, it was like people like genuinely couldn't see a path to Arkansas being good. I'm like, man, I don't know. And then Seth says something still isn't right with Gaeckle, but he really battled this weekend. Good to see him pick up a couple dubs, even without his best stuff. No, I would agree. And honestly, like that's the part that annoys me is I feel like that's been, Gaeckle's had good outings this year. It's not like he's been all bad, but even when he's had good outings, it's like, oh, he battled, he made it work and he was able to kind of get through a little bit. To me, I think it really comes down to pitch execution, and it just like how high of a percentage of your pitches are you executing? Because a lot of times we always talk about stuff, and obviously stuff can mean just how hard you throw or how much does your slider move or whatever. You can tell how good of stuff you have by when you I'll give you an example. Gabe Gaeckle threw an 0-2 slider right down the middle. I'm talking about right down the middle in one of those situations there in the 8th inning or in the 7th inning. Guy just kind of swings right through it. That's a spot where his stuff actually bailed him out, where his execution wasn't there, but his stuff was good enough. Sometimes Ethan McElvain sometimes will just throw a fastball that's, hittable, but guy can't catch up to it. You're okay there. When people see Gaeckle get hit and they think, oh, his stuff just isn't good enough, when you throw your ball right down the middle, it doesn't matter how good your stuff is most of the time. Like that eventually, if you're in the SEC and you're playing at this level, you're going to get caught. The double he gave up to Justin LeBron, it wasn't like this crazy great piece of it. He threw a breaking ball that was right down the middle. He was sitting soft. He ropes it down the left field line. Like, and I think with Gaeckle, a lot of times it's like, I think it's a pitch execution thing. I also wonder if there's like maybe just some, I don't know. He has 4 pitches that you can work with. And I think sometimes they overthink it a little bit on like what pitches to work with a little bit. Today it was the slider that got him out of some trouble. And so that was kind of the pitch he was able to command a little bit better. A lot of times we've seen the curveball be very effective for him. He didn't really have his changeup much today. So he kind of just had to make it work. The fastball command has not been there for Gaeckle, and he's now throwing pretty consistently in the mid-90s, like 94, 96. And so we'll see if maybe that ticks up just a hair. But you've got to be able to locate that fastball, and I think that's been the biggest point of frustration, I think, for Gaeckle is that he's not able to get ahead with his fastball. And then when he does get ahead, he's not able to execute legitimate 2-strike pitches. They're either completely uncompetitive or they're over the heart of the plate, and we can't really live with either of those. Let's see. And Washburn Idol makes a good point that the amount of sweeps this year in the SEC is wild. They alluded to this on the broadcast at one point, and we're saying that I think that if some things played out a certain way today, there could be at the end of the weekend 15 sweeps in the SEC, which is crazy. We're just now entering the halfway point of SEC play. So for there to be 15 sweeps, like that's a lot. And it is just kind of weird. I mean, like, frankly, like the Florida series, you know, we talk about overcorrection, and sometimes the results, like, you just kind of can see it and you'd be like, okay, well, that doesn't really add up. Like, Arkansas didn't play well against Florida. They probably shouldn't have gotten swept against Florida, I wouldn't think. Mississippi State and Ole Miss played a very close, very competitive series that Mississippi State just happened to win all of the games. And then last weekend, Georgia and Mississippi State played a close, competitive series where Georgia just happened to win every single game. And it's kind of, I mean, Alabama, Florida, Alabama, who else did they be? Auburn had a similar situation where it's like Alabama got swept by Kentucky, where it's like, you know, maybe the right guy won the series, but you're kind of like, oh, I didn't expect that to be a sweep. And so I don't know what that is. I don't know. Maybe it's something that'll overcorrect and we'll see less and less sweeps throughout SEC play. I don't know, but that is very interesting. And I see Hab here says, what do we have to do to host a regional? So, okay, here's what I would recommend is do not get too hung up right now on RPI. I've referenced RPI a lot, and RPI is very relevant. The closer and closer you get to June right now, you know, that's whenever your RPI really matters. But we talk about this in basketball with like KenPom and net ranking and all this. Bro, has the net ranking come out in net November, December, and we say, holy cow, Arkansas's 58th. Wow, they're not going to – are they a bubble team? Like, what's going on? And then the games play out. You get into conference play where, you know, the bulk of your resume is going to be built in conference play. That's when it starts to average out. You look up at the end of the year, and, you know, it kind of plays out the way it needs to. Everyone right now is making these sweeping proclamations based on RPI, and Arkansas's RPI right now is not in a great spot to host a regional. I would imagine today's win probably gets them into the low to mid 30s range there. If the season ended today, yeah, it'd be really tough to make the case for Arkansas hosting a regional, but you've got so much of your resume still to play out. Not to mention, historically speaking, I know Arkansas, you know, in 2022 went 18-12 in the SEC and didn't host a regional. This team, from an RPI standpoint, does seem like they're going to profile maybe more in line with that, where it really might take 18, 19 SEC wins for Arkansas to host a regional. But it's way too early for people to be speaking that definitively about stuff. Because, like, I mean, for example, Arkansas's RPI 72 hours ago was like 59th in the country. They're now like 25, 30 spots up. If you sweep Georgia, which I don't expect Arkansas to do, but like if you sweep Georgia, all of a sudden you've got a top 18 RPI. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I think you kind of just have to let this thing play out. But we'll get to the end of the season and kind of see where Arkansas is at if they're within striking distance. But it's pretty simple. You got to beat Georgia in a series, I would say, because if you beat Georgia at home, that's the best team left on your schedule. And going into this weekend, I felt like Alabama and Georgia, these were the toughest games on your schedule. Arkansas's got a lot of wins that you can assume they're going to win. Like, you go to Columbia, Missouri to play a 3-game series with Missouri. We can assume that Arkansas is going to win that series 2 out of 3. They probably need to go ahead and sweep that one. You know, you're going to go on the road at Kentucky, and they've kind of come back down to earth a little bit. They have one of the worst offenses in the league. We can reasonably assume Arkansas is probably going to win that series. You need to probably go ahead and sweep that. And so it's going to come down, I mean, like, for example, the South Carolina series. If that had been a sweep, this is a little bit of a different conversation, different equation, because then you'd be looking up and you'd be like, man, Arkansas is like 7-2 on the road this year. Like, they're in a great spot. You know, you'd have 2 SEC road sweeps on your resume. That'd be huge. It could come down to just 1 or 2 games here and there. And so I think Arkansas needs to beat Georgia in a series before we can really start seriously entertaining that. For right now, I'm just glad that Arkansas has kind of evaded the are they going to make the tournament allegations for sure. Travis Johnson says Kojal had a great weekend, a great leader for this team. Agreed on both counts, man. And yeah, because I mean, you know, he was hitting under 200 in SEC play. I think even going into today's game, he was under 200. So there's still like some growth for him to have. Like, I imagine he's going to have some. You want to talk about overcorrections? You know, that guy was definitely not just going to stay down long forever. And you know, how about him just playing shortstop? And he hasn't been perfect at shortstop, but for the most part, done a great job, kind of just made that a non-factor. Like, that's not something we talk about at all. That's a big deal, and I think that's going to help him when it comes to this June and July for the draft, you know, showing that ability to play shortstop. He's not going to do it at the major league level, but kind of showing teams, hey, I played third base in college. I played first base in college. I've started at second base for a lot in college, and now I've got some experience at shortstop. Oh, and I'm a left-handed hitter who's hit 15 home runs last year. He's got 9 home runs this year. He's going to get into some of those as well. He had an Oppo home run the other day. Like there's a lot, a lot of things. And then you mentioned the leadership. That's one thing that is like unquestionable with Camden Kojal. I love that. I think he's definitely a huge piece for this team. And again, like a lot of, it's funny because like we talk about the transfer class a lot, and we're like, oh man, it feels like all these guys are busts. And you look at Pompey on his worst weekend, oh, this guy's a bust. And Mike Anu on his worst weekend, yeah, the guy looks like a bust, and he didn't have a great weekend this weekend. And then Damian Ruiz is out for a little bit, and we kind of harped on the transfer class. If Arkansas's older guys perform how they're capable of performing, like Aloy, Kojal, Robinette hasn't been great here lately. Souza has been pretty good here lately. Helfrich, obviously, we know what he can do. Like, just with that group alone, Arkansas should be able to scratch out 2 or 3 runs. And that's with nobody else stepping up and helping out. You saw yesterday what it can look like when you kind of get everything rolling at the same time. There are a lot of dangerous guys in this Razorback lineup that, I think get dismissed very easily when they're not playing their best baseball necessarily. Nathan says the rotation this week and how he used our guys was incredible. I would say it. Yeah. I mean, especially with the way it kind of played out this weekend, I thought was kind of ideal for Arkansas. I imagine they'll probably do the same thing they did this week, where they go Dietz on Friday, or Dietz on game 1, Gibbler game 2, and then TBA game 3. And then who knows what that'll look like. Like there might be weekends, because this particular series, all 3 games had high leverage situations late in the ball game. That doesn't always happen. You think about game 2 of the Mississippi State series, it was like 8-1 at one point in that game. So you were able to kind of throw off and not use your top arms. I wonder if that's something that they'll explore, where maybe there's a series where you use McIlvain, you use Coyle, but you haven't used Gaeckle. Would they then try and give him a start at some point? I don't know, but I definitely think it played out pretty well. And McGuire, by the way, we didn't really talk about him much. I thought today McGuire was he ended up 3 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, one of which was unearned because you had a TJ Pompey error on a routine ground ball that wound up coming around to score. That cost Arkansas a run there. For the most part, if Tate McGuire is going to be 3 innings, 1 run, I know that, you'd like to have a little bit more, linked out of your starters, but like in this particular situation, even using a couple guys throughout the weekend, Arkansas was able to piece it together just fine. And so I think if they use that Sunday role as kind of just an opener, kind of just a get you into the game spot, I think Tate McGuire's more than capable of being that. And, he wasn't even, he made a couple mistakes here and there today. Like he's capable of even being better than that. But I think it's going to be similar to how they used Landon Beidelshees last year, where, the leash is going to be pretty short there. I actually was a little bit surprised they took him out when they did, but it worked out perfectly fine. Let's see. And then Hog On It says, I just love the way these freshmen just battle at the plate. Just refreshing to see, even with the box score reflecting an off day. Yeah, I think today snapped like a 14 game on base streak for Carter Rutenbar. That dude's a stud, man. Like he just fights you. He hit a freaking knuckleball yesterday right up the middle, where it kind of darted away from the second baseman. I think the most impressive part about what Rutenbar has been doing is, one, they move him up to the top of the lineup, and it didn't affect him at all. And in fact, it maybe even almost made him better. He's also just as good against lefties as he is against righties. I think he did strike out in his last AB against a lefty, but he's had a lot of huge hits for Arkansas against left-handed pitching. And for a guy that, you're still kind of trying to find that position, he looked a lot better out there in right field today. Good enough athlete. The bat is clearly there. I think they've made the right decision to just roll with him, and I hope they continue to do that. And love to see it, man. And then Turner comes in afterwards. I think they brought him in as a defensive replacement. He's going to continue to get ABs as well. We didn't see much of him or Zach Stewart in this series once Damian Ruiz came back into the fold, and so I imagine that starting outfield is still going to be Ruiz, Rutenbar, and New for the foreseeable future. But all these guys are going to get their opportunities at certain times, and I like that. And then Ryan says, really huge sweep. Do we think Gaeckle, Coyle, and McIlvain are throwing 2 times a weekend going forward? Is Sunday a BP day for the foreseeable future? Sunday in college baseball is a bullpen day. I know that some teams, you have a guy that you would like to go 5 or 6 innings. I mean, for example, Upchurch for Alabama, he went 6 innings in this start. It was the first time he's done that in like 6 weeks. In SEC play, he didn't get out of the first inning against Florida. He's been like 2 1/3, 3 1/3, 2 2/3. A lot of times you just get to Sunday, you need a win, but whether you're down 2, up 2, in a rubber match, you don't really have time to mess around. It's always going to be that way. Like Lyle Lockhart is a guy that might pitch in the big leagues, is a very quality left-handed arm. Even when he was Arkansas' Sunday starter, Sunday was a bullpen game. It just kind of always will be that way. And so whether that means Gaeckle ends up starting that Sunday game, it would still be that same kind of situation where you're thinking short leash. And then listen, if you throw out Tate McGuire next week, let's say he goes out there Saturday against Georgia and he only gives up 1 hit through 4 innings, well then okay, maybe you can squeeze a little bit out of him. But I think you need to go into every Sunday game preparing to piece it together on the mound. And again, we come back to Gaeckle. If Gaeckle is pitching the way that he's capable of pitching, which has not happened this year, it just hasn't. And I think DVH downplayed it the other day. I really think the decision to just not have him throw for 7 months, probably in hindsight, wasn't a great idea, especially because the command just hasn't been there at all. It's like, maybe you F that one up a little bit. But like when he, if you can get him rolling, that's a guy that literally, he threw 6 innings out of the bullpen in Omaha. He threw 5 2/3 against A&M last year out of the bullpen. Arts only got 3 innings out of him in 2 outings. You could see a path to him throwing 2 on Friday and 4 on Sunday type of thing. So yeah, I think it's going to continue to be a bullpen day for Arkansas. You might not necessarily use all those guys every single time twice a weekend. And maybe you would like for there to be some times where you wouldn't, you don't want to continuously do that. But I think all those guys probably need to be prepared to do it for sure. And then Ryan says, why do we continue to fail at sacrifice bunting? This feels like it's been a problem for several years recently. I think, so yesterday you had Reese Robinette come in and goes down 0-2, and then eventually gets the bunt down and ends up actually beating it out for a single. So it's like they every now and then can, and they do it every now and then. It's just not something Arkansas does a ton of. So then if you do it twice in a weekend and you go 1-1 in those 2 opportunities, it's like, oh man, this is a huge problem. I think it's just something they don't do a ton of. And I will say I didn't appreciate, Nolan Souza wound up bailing himself out with the left on left hit. I didn't like that the first pitch that he tried to bunt, he didn't show it. Runners on first and second, nobody out. That's a sacrifice situation. He doesn't even get the bat out there until, the pitcher's in his windup. The second pitch, they clearly said something to him because he kind of went back out there and did it, and then ended up fouling it off and then ended up just swinging away. It's definitely something that they're just not comfortable doing. I don't know. My thing is, if you suck at it, don't do it. It's kind of my philosophy. But if it is going to be something you do, have some guys that can sit down there and do it. They say that Robinette is one of their better bunters. He couldn't get the bunt down today, pops it up to the pitcher. They said, who was it? They put in Brumball in a situation against Mississippi State where they were like, hey, we think he's a good bunter. We're going to put him into the game and bunt, and he doesn't get it done. I don't know, man. I do see them work on it. I know they work on it during BP, but I don't know, man. I think it's just something that they're not super comfortable doing. I don't know. They did last year's team sacrifice bunted, not a lot, but they were pretty good when they needed to do it and got away with it a decent amount. Arkansas has some guys that can bunt for a hit every now and then, so it's not like it's a program issue. I just think that some of these guys on this team suck at it. It is that simple sometimes. Christian Holt says, keep Aloy at DH. Don't move him in and out of the lineup. Just going to screw ourselves in the end. That way, keep him in everyday lineup. The lineup needs to stay the same, except right field can rotate Stuart Turner. I think there's something to this. And, with Damian Ruiz being back, and I assume Rutenbar is going to play right field most of the time, especially if Pompey keeps hitting, because if Pompey keeps hitting, he's going to stay at third. And if he stays at third, that means you're probably looking at Robinette at first. And if Robinette's at first, that means Rutenbar's either got a DH or play outfield. And I think right field is probably his most comfortable position. And so what that means for Stewart and Turner, I don't know. I think that maybe means that those guys are pinch hit options off the bench, or maybe just, a matchup dependent guy. If you want to load up lefties, you can take New out and kind of move it around. But yeah, I do agree though with keeping Aloy at DH. And I felt this way about him. I was actually arguing with our guy Daniel Shee about this last week, where I was like, I think Arkansas is so inconsistent at the plate. You can't really afford to take some of those powerful guys that have power out of your lineup. We saw yesterday how dangerous Cahill can be. He hit a ball 114 off the bat yesterday. I don't remember if he had a hit in this game or if he just kind of maybe drew a walk or two, but for the most part, I thought Cahill was good this weekend. And I do agree with your sentiment that keeping him in the lineup, you're going to have your ups and downs, which I think you just have to be prepared to live with. But I think jerking around the lineup, it's hard for guys to get into a rhythm. And, when that guy's in a rhythm and feeling good about himself, he can absolutely carry you for a week. He can also, go 0 for 12 with 10 punch outs in a weekend. But again, I think you kind of just need to be prepared to roll with that thing. Chris Sullivan says, lost 180 betting against Arkansas. Won't do it again. Chris, well, I appreciate, I appreciate you giving a super chat despite your gambling losses this weekend. And I also don't hate the premise of betting against Arkansas kind of as a reverse jinx type of thing. And I think that's a sound move to do. I don't hate that. But I will say this, I was actually going to make this point earlier. There are a lot of people in the state of Arkansas who do not want Arkansas to be good at baseball. Would you guys agree with that assessment, that there are a lot of people in the state of Arkansas who do not like it when Arkansas has success at baseball? And every time Arkansas loses a game, they rush to Twitter to kind of be like, you guys still like this baseball team? Interesting. Or they tweet some dumb shit at me. Like, there's a lot of people who really seem to thrive. They love it when Arkansas loses. And I appreciate not having to hear from them for at least a weekend. I've actually gone, I don't know if you guys have noticed, probably not because nobody cares. I really just don't tweet during games as much, because every time I would tweet during a game, no matter what it was about, it could be like a second inning home run, it would just get flooded with, I hate this guy. Why is Pompey in there? He sucks. And I just was like, I really don't want, when I'm watching a game, I just want to watch a game and enjoy it and then talk about it with you guys afterwards. I really don't want to do the in the moment stuff, but it was very good for my mental health, just not being on Twitter this weekend. Gibson says, think Gibbler stays starting. I do think he stays starting. One, I didn't think he lit it up yesterday. It wasn't like this awesome Cole Gibbler outing. In fact, it was kind of similar to what he's been doing for Arkansas out of the bullpen, going about 3, 4, 5 innings in that range. The strikeout rate has been down. Gibbler was a guy last year that struck out 60 dudes in 30-something innings. He had one of the best strikeout rates in the entire country. The strikeouts have been way down, but he also hasn't been really walking many guys. Now, he did walk, I think, 3 or 4 yesterday, which is a little bit uncharacteristic. I definitely don't want to see that continue. But, I think, and we spoke about this going into the series, that, I think a lot of times you see someone have success in the bullpen and you just say, just make him a starter, and, he'll just continue to be very good, and he'll just do it. He'll throw more pitches and just be better the entire time. It's a lot easier said than done. And so no matter what, it's going to be an adjustment when you make that shift to the starting rotation. Now you're not coming. When you're coming into a game, throwing an opponent off, and all of a sudden they've been facing someone else, and now you're the change of pace, and they're kind of looking at the sheet for 2 minutes while you're throwing warm-up pitches. That's what they do to get ready for you, versus they know all week that you're starting. They can go into their lab, they're pitching, they can go into their batting cage, kind of put into the little machine and be like, hey, we got a lefty that throws 91, he throws a slider. They can spend multiple days prepping for you. It's always going to be a little bit of an adjustment. And so, I'm not discouraged at all by him having a few growing pains here and there, but overall, I think the timing is right for him to kind of make that move to the starting rotation. He had earned it based on the way that he had been throwing. And I thought yesterday he was fine. What did he give up? 3 runs, 2 earned runs. He was fine, so I didn't think he was bad enough to where you have to bench him. I think he's only going to get better. I think Dave even said it yesterday in the post game that he'll be better next week. Would like to see that strikeout number go up a little bit, but if he can get that walk rate back down, I don't think it really matters. He does a pretty good job of not letting things get too crazy out there. Let's see. Peyton, our guy from Blue Ember, says, is Alabama baseball the equivalent to Vandy basketball from this past year? This is interesting. So I guess in this scenario, Tyler Tanner is Justin LeBron, which, by the way, of course, he kind of broke out of his slump this weekend while he's playing Arkansas. He's fun. He's fun to watch, man. He gave us those 2 runs the other day. That was huge also. But no, I think there's something to that. And so I have a weird perspective on this because everyone all year was like very adamant that Vandy sucked and they weren't a good team. And I never agreed with that necessarily. Like I thought Vandy wasn't going to make the tournament going into the year. And so then once we got into the season and you looked and you're like, okay, not only are they a tournament team, they're going to be a tournament team very easily. They're going to be able to make this thing work. Like I was kind of pleasantly surprised by how good Vandy is or was in basketball. I've also been pleasantly surprised by Alabama baseball and how good they are. And they're clearly, by the way, a tournament team, at least I would think. And so I think in a weird way, I think you mean this in a way of like, oh, they're both frauds that got hot early, which is true. But I actually think both of those teams are better than the public will probably view them after this weekend. Let's see what we got going on here. Appreciate everybody for joining, man. This is awesome. I mean, because like I was saying, we were doing these calling all casual streams during the week, and it was bleak, man. There were some times where I was like, man, I don't know if anybody cares about baseball. I don't know if anybody's going to watch anything. And man, this is crazy. But I appreciate everybody tuning in for this one. Let's see. Butcher Boy says, I just got into the Discord live game chat for this series. And wow, I thought the live chat on YouTube was crazy. I was wrong. Yeah, no, listen, there's some good people on the Discord. I'm not trying to say it's like a horrible organization full of bad people or anything like that. Because there are some good folks out there that like have brains and, you can actually have conversations with. But for the most part, it's like just straight up Reddit slop on there. Like people don't even string together coherent sentences. It's just like they kind of repeat the same buzzwords that you hear. Like you can they kind of remind me of bots on Twitter where it's like they just kind of retweet, oh, bad approach, fire Nate Thompson, fire DVH, Dave Van Choke, and it's like they really don't even you can't even have a conversation. Matter of fact, I saw somebody posted he sent a link to the tweet to Matt Jones tweet, and it was announcing the starting rotation. He was just trying to inform the chat. He's like, hey, they announced the starting rotation for the weekend. Here it is. And this is on Wednesday. And the first 2 responses are doesn't matter. We can't hit. We suck. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We're literally just he's not even arguing anything good. We're just sharing information here. You can't even do that on that Discord. So if you've noticed, Butcher Boy, pretty much everyone with a brain has been weeded out of the baseball thread of the Discord. Every now and then you'll see some people pop in there, but it's definitely a different breed, man. I know it's been driving Curtis nuts because he's in there every day on the portal chat. It's tough, man. It's tough. And then Butcher Boy says, today was the first time in a long time I didn't think the game was already over when we got down. I was skeptical Friday and Saturday, but they restored some faith. It is very interesting, man. And again, and I'm guilty of this as well, where sometimes you see a result happen and you just kind of are it's hard to not feel like that's part of your characteristics. And I really, my breaking point in all the losing, my breaking point was that game 1 against Auburn, where it was 2-1 entering the 5th inning. And then one thing went wrong for Arkansas and they just completely decombusted. They just completely failed to respond. And I thought that was such a huge red flag and I didn't like it. And I remember in that moment, that's probably the most angry post-game recap I've done. I really did. I was like, man, I'm losing faith that this team has that kind of respondability, that they have that kind of special makeup where they can respond to adversity. And then, of course, literally a day later, they beat Auburn. You win a 3-2 game. Ryder Helfrich carries you. I think that game was so important because it kind of reminded the guys in that dugout, we don't have to be perfect. We don't even have to play that well. In fact, most of us can get away with kind of going 0 for 3, 0 for 4 if we just play good defense because we have guys that can kind of carry it. And if we're all doing our job on the mound, it's not like we're going to have to score 12 runs every game. I think that game was huge for Arkansas, even though they didn't win that series against Auburn, but kind of to just restore that good feeling back in the dugout. And then this series, it was a complete opposite of what we saw in the Florida series, where every time the game was on the line against Florida, they would make the big swing. They would have the pitcher that would come in and get guys out. And Arkansas just couldn't quite rise to that occasion. It's the exact opposite in this Bama series. Pretty much every time Arkansas got to the Alabama bullpen, they made those guys work and they did some damage against them. Literally every single one of Alabama's top bullpen arms. In fact, the guy that they threw today, the lefty, Ashton Crowther, maybe is his name, He was one of the 3 guys we spoke about coming into the series. They specifically didn't use him yesterday and kind of punted game 2 once it's kind of got away from them so that they could have that guy available for game 3. And he wasn't bad. He only gave up like 1 or 2 runs maybe. I think, maybe just 1 actually once. He gave up the single to Nolan Souza to tie the game, but that wasn't his run, and then gave up that double to Kojal, which gave him the lead. But literally every single time Arkansas faced one of Alabama's top bullpen arms, they were able to make some noise against them, which I think is a very good sign. I think you can also now start to see Arkansas starts to chip away at starting pitchers throughout the game. Like even Friday night on against Tyler Fay, who did a really good job. He only gave up 1 run against Arkansas. It looked early on like, holy cow, this dude's about to just cruise through this lineup. But then the second time through, they start making him work a little bit. Now, okay, you got to run. And like you could see him wearing down. And I appreciate that. That's how it should work. It should not get easier to get your lineup out. You know what I mean? But sometimes, pitchers find a groove and whatever. And we've seen Hunter Dietz kind of be that way. We're like, if you're going to get Hunter Dietz, you better get him early because once he settles in, you're toast. He kind of has that feel. And I think that's a very good identity that Arkansas can really build on of like, we're going to be tougher in inning 2 than we were in inning 1. And then it's going to be tougher inning 3 than it was in inning 2. And we're just going to continue to make you grind, and you might execute some pitches and make us swing and miss. You're going to have to execute 2 more. And then we're going to have 2 more guys come to play. You're going to have to keep. It's like, I think it's a mentally draining thing that I really don't think teams felt against Arkansas 3 weeks ago. And perhaps that is just a result of things going well, but, whatever. My guy Finch here says, can we all just take a moment to appreciate Ellis's effort in making his backdrop nicer by slowly adding quality pieces to his wall and table? I really appreciate this, Finch. And I'll be honest with you, it hasn't even really been that conscious of an effort. It's just kind of when I do get something, like for example, I was at Bud Walton and got that thing that's like NCAA top freshman scoring duos. I just thought it was a cool poster, and I'm like, yeah, I guess I might as well throw it on my wall. That other one right here, this little baseball one that has, I think it's the schedule. I was like, all right, let me just add that. Baum is very good about handing crap like that out, so I will never, stuff like this, cool stuff like this. So I feel like I'll never run out of these things, and so I have kind of appreciated it a little bit more. And shout out to Hillary for making that cool little helmet right there, her little needlepoint there. I like that. We've also got to have the Star Wars stuff going on. I like that. Ryan says, Andrew, with you watching a lot of the fall in preseason, is this what you expected out of the freshman class? Have they even exceeded your expectations? So I got to be honest with you, Ryan, and I swear I'm not BSing you at all. I swear I'm not. Arkansas's freshman class has not performed as high as I thought they would. And I know that's going to sound crazy because you're sitting here watching Carter Rutenbar be awesome. You see Christian Turner get in there a little bit. I'm being dead serious. Arkansas's freshman class is better than they have shown you to this point. Specifically, Carson Brumbaugh, you guys watched him play for a couple months. Carson Brumbaugh has a lot of skills, a lot of tools as a baseball player. He displayed none of them in the regular season once the season got started, but he showed off a lot. He showed off some opposite field power. He played shortstop, played third. He came in the mound and threw 97, which we did see a little glimpse of that. Like, that dude is really good, and he's going to be a good prospect in the years to come. He has not necessarily brought that to the regular season. Christian Turner, I'll be honest with you, like if you had put a gun in my head 3 months ago and been like, hey, I'm from the future, and there are 2 Razorback freshmen who are killing it in the lineup right now, I would have said it's either Carson Brumbaugh or Christian Turner, because Christian Turner had been lighting it up, and he was really good in the fall, and so you could kind of tell and he was one that even before they started scrimmaging, you were kind of hearing some stuff about his exit velocities and, oh, he's got some power and he might be the fastest guy on our team. And so I kind of knew he was good. Rutenbar, I was sleeping on, man. I was 100% sleeping on Rutenbar. And again, it's because when you're out there in the fall, it's really just a tools-based game, because like they're playing some games, but we keep the stats, but it's really just like, how far can this guy hit a baseball? How fast is that guy? How big is this guy? And Carter Rutenbar, like when he gets off the bus, 5'10", 180, whatever, doesn't necessarily look like one of those guys where you're like, ooh, let's make sure we keep an eye on him. And so honestly, I wasn't like, and he was the backup catcher in the fall. So I was also thinking he's not going to play because like he's behind Ryder Helfrich. And so, if he can be a solid backup catcher, cool. I had no idea he was going to wind up playing outfield. until our guy Joe Doyle came on the pod and was like, "Yo, watch out for Carter Rutenbar." And man, he turned out to be a prophetic one with that. And I'll be honest. And then the freshmen, the pitching class. When I say the freshman class is underperformed, I'm really talking about the pitchers. Like I would have been very surprised in the fall if you had told me that none of these guys wound up being in the weekend mix. Not necessarily weekend starters, but like I would have thought that Mark Brissy would be giving Arkansas a few outs on the weekends, consistently. I would have thought Joey Lorenzini was going to have a real chance to help Arkansas on the weekends. Who else? I mean, I feel like Jordan Martin is a guy that I wouldn't have been stunned if you told me he wasn't contributing, because we know that he's kind of a work in progress. But I would have thought a couple of these guys would have maybe, given Arkansas a little bit. But it is what it is. And Lindsay wants to know, why would they not want them to be successful? Are they not Hog fans? No, I'll be honest with you, Lindsay. So baseball fans, we bring this on ourselves a lot because there are a lot of baseball fans who are very like pompous in the way that they watch sports, where they're kind of like, oh, baseball's a thinking man's game. And so sometimes on Twitter, our baseball fans will be getting at casual fans a lot and kind of be like, oh, if you're complaining about this, then you don't know ball. And so it kind of creates that tension among the fan base, which again, I think it's all stupid. I think if you're a baseball fan who's like mad at other people for not watching baseball, that's a little bit weird, because you got to understand, like, this is a little bit of a niche sport, and we want as many people as possible to come join us and watch this thing because it's awesome. We love this team. I think people get a little too weird about it sometimes, and so it's certainly not completely unwarranted. But I think there's a lot of people who, of course, are like, maybe more so football fans, more so basketball fans, and maybe don't quite care as much about baseball. They're not like completely unopen to getting into it, but the baseball fans who were like baseball diehards kind of turned them off of it, which I do understand. I can understand why some of these dweebs on Twitter that are, big pieces of Razorback Twitter on baseball, I could see how they would, get under your skin. But like, ultimately for me, like, when I was a kid, I thought Razorback baseball was like the coolest thing in the world. That's what I wanted to do. It's always something that I thought was cool. And I always wanted other people to think it was cool. And I wish more people just felt that way without being weirdos, for the most part. And then Gunner Files makes a great point. Those people are just miserable and they want everybody else to be miserable too. I think so for sure. And just like anything in sports, like a lot of times we want to be right more so than we want anything else. And so there's a lot of people who are very vocally every year are like, baseball sucks, fire Dave Van Horn, fire Nate Thompson, fire Matt Hobbs. And they want to be right. And so when Arkansas wins, you just don't hear from them for the most part. Yeah, let's see. And then let's see. And then Jerry here says, people are tired of all the baseball hype and we have 0 titles to show for it in the last 2 decades. Those people want Van Horn gone. And I understand, being frustrated that you don't have a national title. Wanting Dave Van Horn gone and admitting to that publicly is the biggest way to publicly let everyone around you know that you are not smart and that you lack, context, critical thinking skills, like knowledge of the situation, everything. And like, listen, you can make your argument, you can feel however you want to feel, but that's the quickest way to let everyone around you know not to take your opinion seriously. It's fair to be frustrated and say, man, because I've always said it, I won't be fully satisfied if I don't watch Arkansas win a national title in baseball. As awesome as this ride has been, as much fun as I've had watching the program, going to games, following the program, professionally, covering it as a fan, as fun as it all has been, there will be a little part of me that will be empty if I don't watch Dave Van Horn win a national title. So I completely understand like that need for like wanting there to be something at the end of this thing. I completely get that. But my thing is like, why are we having that conversation right now? Like, for instance, the title of this show is Arkansas Alabama Live Series Recap. I spent the first 20 minutes of this show talking about the series, talking about some trends with the baseball team. Oh, hey, this guy's playing well. Oh, this guy stepped up and helped us. I think it's dumb when we'll be talking about like a game and be like, oh, hey, nice swing by Ryder Helfrich. He hit a triple in the gap. And people will be like, yeah, but no natties. It's like, like what do you want us to do about that right now? And I said this a lot last year because I really thought last year's team was going to win the national title. And so a lot of times when people would complain, I was like, do you really want to witness Arkansas win a national title and then have been bitching the entire year? Like, wouldn't that suck to realize that, like, you were in the middle of one of the best moments of your life, but you were too stubborn and too angry and too mad about random midweek games to even appreciate it? And I think there are a lot of people who would feel that way. If Arkansas won a College World Series, they would definitely look back and be like, damn, can't believe I just was mad the entire time. And then I see Gunner Files here says, I wonder if this is going to be like the 2022 team that plays better. I definitely think there's a little something to that. And, you know, if I can go back, and if you've been watching the pod for the last couple months, you've probably heard me say this a lot, but I go back to that loss that they suffered against UT Arlington, which is when we really started to sniff out some like red flags and some, hey, maybe this team doesn't love playing at home, and maybe the outside noise does get to them a little bit. One thing I said in that postgame was that us as Razorback fans, the players and coaches and teams that we love the most are the ones that we feel like have like battled adversity and come out of the other end of it. You know what I mean? And so, you know, someone like Brandon Allen, for example, watching Brandon Allen's senior year as the quarterback was so awesome because you had watched him, you know, make his first career start against Alabama and get his ass whipped. You watched him go 3-9 in 2013. Then you watched him kind of build up and, you know, got Arkansas to a bowl game in 2014. He was MVP of the Texas Bowl, and you're kind of like, okay, now he's kind of becoming a winning football player, and he's kind of helped the program kind of build up a little bit. And then his senior year, he puts up awesome numbers, has some awesome wins, and like part of what made that so sweet was kind of seeing him overcome that, you know, adversity and seeing the whole journey. And I think for that 2022 team, what made that team's run in Omaha so fun and watching that Stillwater Regional is because it was like, we had watched this team suck like a week ago. You know, we had watched them kind of get to the point where it was like, oh man, these guys are in trouble. They're not going to host a regional. And then we watched them, you know, rise to the occasion in the biggest moments of their season. It makes it more enjoyable. And so as bad as things were when they were losing to Stetson and, you know, getting swept by Florida and all that, now that we as the fan base have watched them kind of take those lumps, take those losses, learn from it a little bit, make some adjustments, keep trucking, keep doing what you're doing, get better, learn from it, grow. Now you're starting to win some games. We appreciate it a little bit more, you know, and frankly, as a fan base, we've been spoiled a little bit. We've been watching Arkansas win literally 20 games a year for the last 5 years. Arkansas's averaged 20 wins in SEC play. We just kind of assume, hey, that's just the way it's going to go. We're always going to be really good in the regular season, and then we'll find out if we choke in the postseason or not. There's a lot of people who kind of feel that way. And honestly, going into this season, I didn't feel terribly dissimilar, where I'm like, I have no doubt we're going to win a ton of games in the regular season. We'll probably be a national seed, and then we'll just see what happens there. That kind of undersells how hard it is to win in this league and how hard it is to, you know, all these teams. I mean, Arkansas, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, LSU, Tennessee, all those teams I just listed off have all had very different results. There's not that much separation between all of us. I know we like to pretend like, oh, you know, the team that's winning, like they're playing great baseball, and the team that's losing, they're playing horrible baseball. They're all separated by just a little bit of margin here or there. And I think, you know, it's really hard to step into that ring and continue to win and continue to be ready in those moments and not lose focus. I mean, Bama lost focus for 1 second in this game. A pickoff throw that should have been the end of the inning, Ryder Helfrich's out. Guy takes his eye off the ball for 1 second and drops it. Now there's a runner on second. Oh, now we're down 3-2. Game's over. It's you know, those kinds of things. Good teams make you pay for your mistakes, and so it's just one of those things. But I think watching them kind of come through the struggle a little bit, I think it'll make us appreciate them a little bit more. And so we'll see what the vibe is like at Baum this next weekend. Hopefully they're not still like kind of uptight, and hopefully it's not a tense, like groaning crowd a little bit. We'll see. By the way, I'll give you another example of a player at Arkansas having to kind of overcome that little narrative with the fan base. Isaiah Campbell. For those of you now, if you're a more like casual observer of Arkansas baseball, when I say Isaiah Campbell, you probably think, oh yeah, Zay-Day. I remember him. He was the Friday night starter in 2019, and he got drafted in the second round. And I think he even had a good game in Omaha before that. Like, you know, this guy was awesome. For those of you that were really tapped in on Arkansas baseball, you remember there was a stretch during that 2018 season where I didn't trust Isaiah Campbell as far as I could throw him. And he's 255 pounds, by the way. he was as shaky, as inconsistent, as up and down as any player I've seen at Arkansas, especially during that 2018 season where, he had outings where he'd go 7 innings and strike out 10, and then the next weekend he wouldn't even get out of the second inning. I remember him not getting a single out in the regional against Dallas Baptist, and Arkansas had to kind of piece it together with Matt Cronin and Jake Reindl, and I think Jake Reindl ended up going 7 innings, but like Campbell was a guy, as talented as he was, Arkansas couldn't really count on him for anything. And I remember watching him throw against South Carolina in the Super Regional, and every pitch, if he missed the zone, it was like, oh, you could kind of hear it in the crowd. People just kind of like whispering, I don't know if we can really trust that Campbell guy. Oh, I don't know. And then all of a sudden in the postseason, he starts, he gave Arkansas a pretty good start in that Super Regional, and then has, breaks the strikeout record in Omaha, sends Arkansas to the finals, and we got to see him overcome that. Then he comes back the next year and was great. And I feel like we as a fan base, we appreciated him a little bit more. And so, I think that's part of the story for some of these guys. And, if Kahio Aloy winds up hitting a home run to send Arkansas to Omaha in the Super Regional, we're going to remember all those sliders in the dirt that he swung and missed at. My guy Ryan here says, Ellis, got to give you a shout out. I know it has been tough to cover a team when a team isn't playing well. I appreciate you continuing to give us things to be positive about. Hope they get on a roll. Well, I'll be honest with you. Give Arkansas credit. I didn't do anything differently. I was just sitting here, doing these pods regardless of whether or not, they were going to win or not. It's a lot easier to do it when they win and when they kind of, make me look not stupid. But no, I appreciate you. I appreciate you with the kind words, man. Appreciate that. And then Lathan here says, with Ruiz back, do you expect more Rutenbar at first place in place of Robinette if he continues to struggle, and give Turner a bigger role in the lineup? Certainly something to be said for that. I think also Zach Stewart would be a guy that, if you're going to move Rutenbar from outfield to first base, which I agree. Like if Reese Robinette really is going to be, 225 with not much power, that's a little bit tougher to keep him in the lineup every day. He's capable of much more, so I'm cool with giving Reese more and more opportunities, because I think he's a guy that can maybe turn things around, maybe get hot at some point, and we just haven't seen it much this year. But I think if Robinette's going to be out of the lineup and you move Rutenbar to first base, I think Turner would certainly have some opportunities there. But I also think Zach Stewart is another one that is like, and he struggled in SEC play, and if you look at his career for the most part, he's bad against left-handed pitching, and he's bad against high-level competition, which is a tough combo a little bit. But I still think he's a guy he's got 50 career home runs. That's too much power to just abandon entirely. I think Christian Turner has almost too much speed to just abandon entirely. He's also got some power himself. So I think I definitely don't think we've seen the last of any of those guys for sure. Beyond transactions, I think this might be a joke or like a troll thing. But he says, Andrew, does Ethan McIlvain give you Kevin Kopps vibes? No, he does not give me Kevin Kopps vibes at all. The only characteristics that Ethan McIlvain and Kevin Kopps share is that they pitch at the end of ball games for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Ethan McIlvain, what he reminds me of, what he reminds me a lot more of, I'll give you an Arkansas closer. He reminds me of Matt Cronin on steroids. Does that sound like a good comp? Because you guys remember Matt Cronin, he used to make the guy slap him before he would come into the game. He would come out there with the rock music, the heavy metal music playing, and he would throw high effort, 95, 97. Every now and then would mix in a breaking ball. McIlvain throws a little bit more off speed than Matt Cronin did, but like just big old left-handed dude that's going to come in and let it eat. And he's a lot bigger than Matt Cronin. But in terms of, Kevin Kopps, you got righty lefty, you've got seventh-year senior versus a junior who's going to get drafted this year. One guy's throwing 86 to 92. One guy's throwing 94 to 98. Different stuff. Kevin Kopps had that weird gyro pitch. Ethan McIlvain's more fastball slider. But in terms of, my comfort level, it's still not quite on that same level of Kopps. But, I think I get where your head's at. I get it. Let's see. Gunner Files says, Andrew, do you think it's possible that part of the reason this team has went through some rough patches is due to the pressure of trying to be as good as last year's team? I would assume at least a little bit. Now, that's one where it's like when you're at Arkansas and you're in the SEC and you're trying to win a national championship, we can't really use that too much as a valid excuse. But I do think it might even be like 5%, but I think there's definitely something to that. especially because, I mean, again, this is a program that the expectation is so high, and you have such a large fan base that, I mean, Damian Ruiz, think about that dude. He was playing at Lamar last year, and he started his career at Houston Christian. He might not have played in front of 10,000 fans his entire career, 3 years leading up to Arkansas. I don't know if he played in front of 10,000 fans total, and that's genuinely not even an exaggeration. To now all of a sudden you're playing your first game for Arkansas in front of 22,000 at Globe Life. You're seeing how this fan base travels, how much all these people are very invested in this. You know how good last year's team was. You know all these different outfielders who have come through and been drafted, and you know that this coaching staff, everyone knows how good they are. Everyone knows how good they can make players. Everyone knows how good the players around you are. So I think that puts a lot of pressure on you, whether it's your Damian Ruiz, TJ Pompey, or any of these guys. And I think when you struggle, when you face some adversity, you feel that a lot. You're checking Twitter and you're seeing all these psychos, probably some of these guys that are in the chat happy today, they're probably tweeting at these dudes being like, you suck. I think it definitely affects these guys a little bit. But yeah, I think there's definitely a little bit of that, but it's also like something you just have to be able to deal with at the University of Arkansas. That's part of it. And then Forever Cello says, do we know why we didn't see Stewart today? He had been doing decently. So Stewart, he had a hit yesterday, but he had not, in SEC play, it's not been going well for him. Or I guess it was Friday that he had a hit. In SEC play, Zach Stewart is hitting 156, which is the single lowest rate on the team besides Alexander Peck, who actually got in today, got in a couple times this weekend. That would mainly be the reason. And then plus you've got Damian Ruiz back. That was the big thing. Zach Stewart played on Friday. He didn't play Saturday or Sunday. Damian Ruiz played. And it was kind of a no-brainer of who they were going to go with, especially today against the left, or was it yet? Especially yesterday against the left-handed pitcher. They definitely, I don't think they were going to, because he's like under 200 for his career against lefties. So that would definitely make sense. Ryan says, Stu Hog highlights came out 4 minutes before Andrew started this live. Are Andrew and Stu secretly the same person? We're not, because Stu Hog is a real human. I mean, this isn't even doxing. His name's Corey Stewart. He's actually about to marry Jeff Long's daughter. Did y'all know that? Christina Long is dating Stu Hog. Did you guys know that? You should know that. Because I feel like I've talked about both of them on the pod a lot, but no, Corey is a good friend of mine, and he's a first of his, one of a kind contribution to Razorback fandom. That dude's a stud. If you're not following Stu Hog on YouTube, what are you doing? Let's see. Addison says, popping in late, but just want to say it's sweet to have listened to the pod through the low points and now enjoy the sweep. Fun to have heard y'all on the preview talking about this possibility. Woo Pig, I think that's supposed to say S. Woo Pig Suey. Yeah, well, I appreciate you again, Addison. That's the theme of today's show. If you live through the gutter, it makes the sunshine feel a little bit warmer. I like that. Jason Jones says, I don't think it's the Jason Jones, that used to play here. He says, why does it seem like this team puts up more errors than teams in the past? Well, it'd probably be because this team commits more errors than teams in the past. And by the way, Arkansas is not like a bad fielding team. They're, in terms of the SEC, they're right in the middle of the pack in terms of fielding percentage, which isn't the end all be all. But to answer your question, there's been, some of if you were to rank the top 10 best fielding teams in the history of Arkansas baseball, truly, if you were to rank, let's say even the top 5, if you were to rank the top 5, like 3 or 4 of those top 5 would be in the last decade. I think the 2018 team was pretty good defensively. I think the 2021 team was pretty good defensively, although third base was kind of a little bit of a shuffle around there. 2022, I think that might have been the best. In fact, it was definitely the best middle infield Arkansas's ever had. Battles and Moore, that double play combo was just lights out. They set the school record for fielding percentage. 2024, they were pretty good defensively. And then last year's team, one of the top fielding teams in the entire country. And they were very good at literally every single position. Vahiva was nasty. Brent Iredale was a really good third baseman. I think TJ Pompey, who is, I like TJ Pompey. He's done a lot better job here at the plate recently. I think he is a step down from Brent Iredale's defensive consistency. Love Cam Kojal. I think he's done a great job at shortstop. He is definitely a step down from Vahiva Aloy as a defender in terms of just range and overall play-to-play consistency. I think Souza, for the most part, has been doing a good job at second base. I think Reese Robinette actually has done a really good job at first base for the most part. I don't think he's committed an error this year. Outfield defense is a complete disaster, man. I mean, not complete disaster is a stretch, but it's definitely a below-average defensive outfield, especially if you've got Aloy or Rutenbar in there. And that's not a knock on, especially Rutenbar, because he's kind of young. He's still kind of figuring out the position. But if you've got one of those guys out there, I mean, even Stewart, not an above-average defender, and so it's just a personnel thing, man. They're just not as good as they've been here lately. But that's no matter what, they were going to have to kind of have a little bit of a regression to the mean a little bit. All righty, let's see. We got anything else going on here? Anything else going crazy? Let's see. Oh, I see. Mama intern Cameron. That's what I'll call her. She says the veteran that carried over, maybe the freshman know. Playing to an Arkansas level is just high pressure in general. Personally, chemistry is a problem. Ooh, yeah, I think there's something to this. And I also think, in terms of the chemistry and kind of going in with the theme of like having to see guys, help you out, see guys kind of battle through some things. I think it definitely does something to your locker room or to your dugout when you have someone like Kahio Aloy, who's a veteran for you, go out there and give you a not competitive AB, maybe strikes out on 3 pitches or just looks at one right down the middle. And then you see a freshman like Rutenbar go in there and he's scrapping, clawing, fouling off pitches, fighting for everything he gets. I think that definitely kind of sends a message to your dugout of like, hey, look at what these guys are doing. And so I think there is a little bit of that. And like, not that these guys are like bullying one another, but it's like you're all very aware of who has been contributing, who has been, helping out, who has been fighting, who has been scratching for you. And I think last year's team won think about Arkansas entering the NCAA tournament last year. Pretty much every single position in the lineup, every single role on the pitching staff, like there was no questioning about it. Like when Zach Root took the mound, you knew why Zach Root was there. You knew he deserved to be there. When Gage Wood took the mound, there was no question he needed to be there. And then if you had any question, it was cleared up really quickly. You could just see how hard he was throwing out there. Gaeckle, was in the bullpen, and it didn't go well from early in the year, but like there was a lot of trust that was in there with him when he took the mound for Arkansas last year. There was a lot of trust that went his way. I think you could say the same for a lot of these guys. All these guys in the lineup, I think that is just so good for your morale, where you just kind of know everyone on this team can do the job. We've seen all these different guys. Like there were games last year where Brent Iredale carried Arkansas. There were games last year where Justin Thomas Jr. came up with massive hits for Arkansas and kind of carried the way. Obviously, Helfrich, Aloy, all these different guys, Maxwell, Davalon, all of these different guys were the heroes on their given days. So you just feel a little bit differently about it, where then if that guy struggles, if Charles Davalon goes 0 for 4, nobody in that locker room is looking at Charles Davalon being like, does that guy care? Is he really working hard? You don't have to worry about that. Whereas I think there's some times in this year with this particular team where a guy would struggle, and I think his teammates would have to look at him and kind of wonder, is he locked in? Like, is he with us? Like, does he really care? And, hopefully they've gotten some of that put behind them a little bit. All righty. Well, we pretty much made it to the end of this chat, man. Appreciate you guys for kicking it with us here. It's been over an hour. I didn't know how long we were going to go on this thing. If this didn't suffice, don't worry. We got an 8 p.m. Sunday Scaries live stream coming from our guy John Neighbors. So for real, man, appreciate you guys for tuning into this. I'm always happy to talk baseball. Happy to do it in a live chat version like this with people interacting. Appreciate you guys that left some super chats, being able to just kind of mix it up with you guys. As much as we kind of give you guys a hard time sometimes, we love it. You are who we do it for. Like your participation is very much like a huge part of this thing. And we like to be in here mixing it up with you guys. As much as we joke about how the chat drives us nuts and all that, it's like, that's what drives our content. That's what drives, we like to be interacting with the fan base and kind of hearing what you guys have to say, saying our piece, and then we can kind of meet in the middle somewhere. And I think we've done a good job of that here on today's show. And as always, it's always a lot better to do these things after a big win, especially when you're a series sweep. So again, appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll be back on the Baumbastic Podcast tomorrow, kind of taking a look around at some of these crazy SEC results this weekend, because it was wild. And again, you will have John Neighbors blessing your screens at 8 p.m. with the Sunday Scaries live stream. So tune into that. Without further, I guess with that, I hope you enjoyed another brilliant edition of the Baumbastic Podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff.